Oh,
Well, hello, hello. This is Christian Landaeta on the On Headphones channel, and I have a very special guest that, to be very honest, I wasn't sure if I could ever catch him, but I did. So yes, here we are. How are things there, Mr. Nick Barrett? Welcome to my channel. It's an honor, really, really, really.
yes, Christian, thank you very much. It's been a very long time since we've done anything chilly, so it's absolutely fantastic to be here.
Thank you very much for the interest and the time. And well, I just want to start this conversation by saying that I still keep those, some of the LPs you sent me back in the vinyl days.
I can
Uh,
see them, yes.
yeah. You have the 915 Live, a very
Yeah,
special live album. There was a track that I played from that one, which is Please, that it's so beautiful. I'm not sure if you still
yes.
play that, but we have so much to talk about. I hope you have some time. I
Yes.
also, yeah, the first time I ever played Pendragon here was in Concerto FM. That was in the mid 80s, the leading FM station. I was lucky to be in charge of a show called Concierto 85 or 86, according to the year, on Sundays at 11 p.m. And then I remember a special show with a Fly High from Full Far, or the EP, and a selection from uh, The Jewel, till now, my big favorite. And of course, as you know, The Black Knight still touches me very deeply. And I was very glad, and I could not believe that you were playing that live when you first came to Chile. Do you remember that back in 1988? It was
Yeah, it wasn't 88, no, 98.
90. What did I
97,
say? 98. Yeah,
yeah, I think it was 97.
97, and then you returned the after
We came back to the
98.
Elephant in
Yeah.
98. Yeah.
Ah, yes.
First show
Yeah.
we did was in the Municipal Concerto Hall or something. Municipal Hall, I can't remember quite the name. Teatro Municipal.
What
Um,
wasn't it, the Caupolicán Theater? No,
that name doesn't ring a
whatever.
bell.
Yeah. Well, but it was unbelievable because when I started playing Pendragon, and then I had the lucky chance to become in charge of this Futuro or Future FM radio station, which became
Yeah,
like a 24-hour a day station that focused on prog rock, electronic music, fusion jazz, and anything you want to mention regarding Britpop that had never been really airplayed or not very frequently here in Chile, like the COCTEAU Twins or Dead Can Dance and all sorts of alternative
yeah,
bands. Yeah, the Mission UK, Thomas Dolby, all those fantastic musicians that you have from the UK. So there, Pendragon had a real, real special place. And as you know by now, or maybe you don't remember, but the Voyager and Shane, what was the other one from COCTEAU? I Walk the Rope. All those
yeah.
songs were usually airplayed, on the basis of, a couple of times a day. So I was glad to see that the people were so enthusiastic when you first played
That's
here.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Chile, it's always
yeah,
been very, it's always been very special for us, Chile and South America. We only played three countries, which was Argentina, Chile, and Brazil. But we remember them very, very fondly, and of course, we'd love to have come there a lot more.
yeah. In fact, I was checking a couple of interviews there on YouTube. You've done in the past. And it seems that touring is not an easy thing to do. It implies lots of, money to dispose of. The logistics is not very easy. And it's really amazing to see that such a big band these days, because when we all became acquainted with Pendragon, you were in the list of, Hayes Palace, Castanark, IQ, and all the rest. and of course Marillion, that I think had something to do with the fact that people finally got to see Pendragon live. I've been always surprised that Marillion could sign with a Capitol Records in America, and that's in EMI
Yeah.
in England.
In England. Yeah.
Yeah, but the story with Pendragon was different. You began on Elusive Records, then Awareness, and then you came out with your own Tough Records label.
Yeah.
So it always seems to be difficult to get sponsor and support from the record companies unless you are, as you know, making some hits. They want to sound the way they want them to sound and not maybe the band. So
Well,
Nick, yeah.
yeah, it's a double-edged sword because when you start off, we're very lucky that we got some promotion from Elusive Records, which was actually John Arneson's record label, the manager of Marillion. And then we were able to do some the live albums and re-release the Jewel and Fly High Fall Far with Awareness Records. But after that, really, we were trying to get a major record deal and nobody was interested. I mean, people were not interested in prog rock and particularly a band that didn't have, what the record companies would call an image. With Marillion, their music had a sort of commercial edge, which was able to, you know, go into a more commercial aspect. And I think EMI saw that. And the same, with having somebody like Fish as a front man, they liked that there was an image there and the whole kind of jesters thing. But with Pendragon, it really, we didn't really have that sort of dressing up type of image, and the songs were still kind of very. I mean, I think that with Pendragon, there has been quite a sort of commercial aspect to the sound. I mean, I think our songs, then when I listen to some prog rock, it's incredibly complicated. And, Pendragon is really music from the heart. It's very melodic, it's very soulful in a way, and, beautiful, I think. And that appeals to a broad spectrum of people. A lot of prog rock does not appeal to a broad spectrum because it's too complicated. So we had that on our side, but we still were unable to get a record deal and kind of reluctantly started Toff Records because otherwise it was do or die. If we don't do something, we'll have to pack it in. So starting our own record label was sort of something we've actually ended up having to do just to survive. But in the long run, it proved to be, if I look back now, I would not have had it any other way. It was absolutely the right thing to do. And I'm very, very happy that we did do that because having your own record label means that, we are completely in control of the music and the artwork and everything we do. So the creative side of it is not influenced by any business people at all. So, it remains very true to its craft. Of course, the only problem with that is that it means that we don't have huge budgets to help tour support or that sort of thing. So that side of it, touring, has been very difficult to do. I mean, it's me that pays for the tours. Me personally, I put up the money to, and it's a heck of a lot of money to do, and it's a risk because if something goes wrong, I can't go to the rest of the band and say, "Can I have some money to pay for the tour?" They'll just say, "Well, you're in charge, so it's your problem." So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
There's a lot of passion there, undoubtedly, because you're risking things, as you say. And
Yeah,
yeah, that's why this occasion, this conversation, Nick, is so special and really meaningful. and really, really amazing because I was going to say that back in those days in the mid 80s when I was playing or trying to play Pendragon and then in the 90s at Futuro FM,
Yeah.
I never imagined that people like Steven Wilson with his Porcupine Tree project that I first ever played back in 1994, Radioactive Toy, the great track from On the Sunday of Life. Um, then he came here like 7 years ago for the first time to the Movistar Arena, which is a huge place. And I said to myself, I cannot believe that so many people, well, several years have, gone on, have passed. And it's amazing the way he could make a fan base that is so huge and people all ages and people my age with the kids, etc., etc. So then he was lucky to become involved as a producer, remastering engineer. And back then, what I was going to say that I remember that at Concierto FM, where I first airplayed the band, Pendragon, I mean, we used to have these top of the pops records that would come weekly or quarterly, I'm not sure. And the one track by Marillion that they included was He Knows You Know, which until today I don't think is a big, it doesn't sound like a big radio hit to me. So it was strange because on the Jewel, I think that you do have some tracks that were kind of, the opening tracks. There are at least a couple of them. The Red Shoes also sound like a hit single. Maybe there is so much music being made in those days that it was difficult. But I'm sure that this making tough records and creating the label was, after all, a very good idea because you're still there with top records. Yes. So yeah.
That's really the key. I mean, because we've done it ourselves, is the reason why we've survived. Because, so many bands. This is the thing. I mean, so many bands sign to record companies, and they end up moving away from their craft, and they end up being sort of part of a business machine. The record company say to them, yeah, we need more singles. We don't want these long songs. We don't want stuff that, it's kind of okay if you're like, Jean-Michel Jarre or Mike Oldfield, where you've succeeded via making conceptual albums, and the record company probably then allow you to continue to do that. But I still think there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of the whole kind of music business with record labels and musicians do not good bedfellows make. You have that creative thing and you have the business thing, and those two things, conflict. Of course, you have to have a business, and that's how, we managed to survive because I learnt to do the business side of things, but it was always on my terms. I mean, people talk about success of things and how do you define success? I define success as it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a marriage or whether it's with friendships or whether it's with making music or running a business. You feel successful when you are in control of your destiny. If someone else is controlling you, there's always an element of dissatisfaction. That's what I believe. And if you have it yourself, or you are in control of your life, I think you're the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah, you
And
make. Yep.
that really is what we had. I mean, we never became particularly well known, but I sort of like that. I like now, I like it because I can make music at my own pace. I have a different kind of pace and a different kind of it's a very different end of the spectrum compared with Stephen Wilson, who he's very prolific and very active musically, and that's just the way that he rolls. And does a lot of production. Um, you know, and that's what he does. I mean, I'm quite a bit older than Stephen Wilson, so I've kind of slowed down a little bit. But like where, I'm doing things in my life that I want to do. I'm out on my mountain bike and I go surfing because I live near the sea.
Uh,
And I love still playing my guitar. So I just pick it up every morning and I play my guitar. The thing is, if you're under a lot of pressure, and Stephen Wilson he has a lot of pressure to, get things finished and get things done. And people sort of say, he gets a lot of flack from people who don't like certain albums. I'm amazed at how aggressive some people get about his material, and we don't really get that very much. we
Nick,
we
let,
generally get quite a good reaction.
let me tell you that I think that the whole world these days is very aggressive, and that's really terrible, and it's difficult to handle. I myself, I've been working as an English teacher for several years now, since like the late 90s, and it's really, really difficult. You have a son, I guess, that you possibly had some difficult times educating him and not limiting him, his own freedom, the way he thinks, the way he wants things to be done. But it's really a worldwide problem, and I think technology, unfortunately, allows us these great moments, to me at least. But on the other hand, it's causing a lot of damage and interrupting and transforming relationships and the world that people relate to each other. So, but to be honest, I had such a large amount of questions for you that I'd like to move on now to um, mentioning that, um, well, I think that you had several influences. Um, Wilson himself is an absolute music consumer, and I personally think that you can notice that from time to time when you listen to the albums. Uh, I don't know where your influences come from. I think that you're a big Hendrix fan, but you also have been listening to Pat Metheny, which I really love.
Mm.
I've been very lucky to see him several times here in Chile. And so, where does all this Pendragon machine, never non-stop machine, comes from?
Well, it comes from, I mean, initially, I loved Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple. And then where I used to work when I was a kid was at a hotel in a restaurant and washing up pots and pans. And
Oh,
the chef there kept playing. He had a little cassette player. This is back in the 70s. He had a cassette player up on the shelf. And I can just remember this tinny little sound coming out of this cassette player up on his shelf. And this, because the music coming out was just going, I know what I like, and I
ah,
like what. And I thought, I really like the sound of this. And I knew that song because it was on it was on Top of the Pops or on a video. I think Genesis got played on the telly with that song because it was a single. But this guy lent me a tape of Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, which I found initially quite hard to listen to. But then when I played it over and I was coming back from school and playing it over and over and over again, and then suddenly after about 2 weeks, the penny dropped, and I suddenly thought, this is the best music I've ever heard. And it was listening to Carpet Crawlers. Like the melody was so good, and the combination of Phil Collins's voice with Peter Gabriel's was amazing, and just everybody's contribution in the band was amazing. And it started a love affair with prog rock. And then, I really loved Camel and Pink Floyd. I liked Dark Side of the Moon, even when I was even younger. and David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars were really big albums for me. But then I really got into the prog thing with Genesis and Camel and Pink Floyd, and then that was sort of it for quite a long time. But I mean, I listened to, lots of different kinds of music. I mean, that sort of then developed into, listening to Pat Metheny, and I've just got an album with a band called Split Ends,
Yeah,
who they had an album called Mental Notes, and I've been talking to Pete Nichols from IQ about this album because not very many people know this album, but me and Pete Nichols both bought this album back in the 70s, and we both absolutely love it. It's a fantastic record, and it's sort of passed a lot of people by. So stuff like that then came along, and you know what it's like when you're in your teens, you just consume everything coming at you. And, then I loved a lot, me and Peter, Pete G, the bass player, both loved a lot of jazz rock, Jean-Luc Ponty, Aldo Meola, Carlos Santana. You know, we love that music. It's fantastic, and we still do. And then that went on to all the other kinds of music out there. I mean, so many different kinds, and I still do. There still isn't enough time to listen to all the music that I want to listen to.
that's true. Now, what about the recent bands? Like I've been listening, for example, to um, Legacy Pilots. They're amazing. Frost, and John Mitchell's project Lonely Robot, which is beautiful. If you had to recommend a couple of things from these days, from the last 20 years, or maybe less, what would you suggest if you're interested at
Oh,
all?
crikey. Well, yes, I am. I mean, I really like the last IQ album, Dominion.
Yeah,
Pete Nichols' voice on that is the best I've ever heard him sing. And the thing is about IQ is that they grew up with us, from the 80s, at the same kind of time playing at the Marquee, and we would sort of parallel both trying to get somewhere with our bands. And it was very difficult for both bands, and we're both still going. And I was really pleased when I heard Dominion to hear that they still have such crushingly heartbreaking music, and it's beautiful. And I like that with music. I mean, I really like Ice by Camel, Long Goodbyes by Camel, Madman Moon by Genesis.
but you
Those are my favorite songs. And when I hear IQ, there's a great kind of emotion in their music that I don't hear from a lot of other prog rock. So
yeah,
my recommendations would be IQ, Dominion, and the other band that I really like were, Anathema. And their last album, it wasn't them actually. It was Danny Kavanagh, I think. He's done an album called, well, they call themselves Weather Systems, and that album, that's the best one I've heard for ages. So those two albums in the sort of prog area. I really enjoyed the Stephen Wilson stuff. I mean, To the Bone. I loved that album. It was great. Because it was more songy and more melodic, and I really liked that. But I mean, there are loads of different records that, I tend not to like an artist, but I'll come across an album which I really like, and then I'm just playing it all the time. But
I was going.
Pat Metheny I'm constantly playing. I mean, my favorite Pat Metheny is probably First Circle because that was the
Oh,
first album that I got into. And the recording, is
cool.
it's a lovely sound. I know he would probably um, prefer some of his later stuff where he had a bit more time. Letter from Home is fantastic. Still Life is fantastic. But for me, First Circle was
Yeah, and
real
then you
deal. I
you
love
have
that
the
album. I still love it now.
you have the very talented Pedro Aznar from Argentina. That he has his own story and with his singing without lyrics. I had the chance to interview both Pedro and Pat, and what Pedro told me that was Pat didn't want the lyrics of the what Pedro sang like real lyrics, but like more accompanying the music, like an extra instrument, and that was really
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
But
and they
the
want.
thing is about that is initially is that Pedro was occasionally he was a bit out of tune, but it kind of made the music even more magical in a way. I mean, I don't know if you, at the moment, I always have done listen to a lot of jazz. I've been listening to it for many years. Getz Gilberto, Stan Getz, with João Gilberto and Astrid Gilberto. And if you listen to the singing, it's very slightly under the note. And it has a kind of it gives it a kind of a lazy sound, which is beautiful because it sounds like you're actually on a beach in Brazil and it's a hot day. And
Yeah,
I feel the same thing with Pedro. You know, he was kind of quite it sounds very spontaneous with his
yeah,
vocals, but I really like that because it suits the music and it has personality. And the personality, I think, is one of the main things that an album should have.
yeah.
Not
No,
not
yep.
technical brilliance, personality.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Perfection is not always the best thing to expect from a record. Now, I'm sorry, you mentioned Eyes, which is also one of my favorite Camel tracks, and then I was going to mention the genius that I find Kid Watkins is. What a favorite
Yeah.
keyboard player. I'm a
Wow.
very yeah, I'm a very big fan of Happy the Man, the band he was
Yeah.
in during the 70s, and I think certainly, as you say, Eyes is very touching and very incredible. Well, Andy Latimer is so special, and he's capable of making music that really touches your soul in a way that not because we are here talking, but you can do it as well many times. I was mentioning Please on the 915 album, which is so beautiful. I'm not sure if you still play that live, and maybe if you return to Chile one day, you could. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
we
think.
haven't played it for a long time. We haven't played it for
Uh,
a very long time.
Beautiful
But
track. Now,
yeah.
um, Love Over Fear, Nick, is your 11th album, if I'm not wrong. And I was going to ask you, what ignites your energy to go on writing and playing after it all began some 47 years ago? Uh, don't the mind or body sometimes show you a stop a little sign? I was surprised to find out that you surf. I had no idea. I can see your surfboard at the back, and it certainly must clear your mind in such a way as maybe playing the guitar does. I never even come close to even imagining doing surfing. I don't think I can do it at 66 now, but I'm sure that it must be a very magical feeling, like you're totally
It
free.
is. I mean, this is part of the reason why I'm kind of glad that Pendragon, we're not really famous because the trouble is that like I said, like with Stephen Wilson, music is what he does all the time at that pace, at that level, and he's very good at doing that. I kind of can't do that. I have to, my brain has to go to other things. I mean, we had a fan once, not very long ago. He said, why don't you stop surfing and get on with the new album? And I said, that is the new album. That is what inspires me to write. I write about things that come to me, that I'm trying to create things that, in a lot of music lacks, I think, real beauty. And I want to try to create that in the music that I write. And that comes from being in the sea or being in the forest or being up on the moors. We have Dartmoor here. And these places, you connect with something bigger than yourself. And it's a very spiritual thing. And then that comes through in the music. And then I love doing it. This is the thing is a lot of people kind of get sick of, I mean, there was a guy who was on X Factor. I think his name's Will Young, many years ago, and he was interviewed a few years ago, and he said, I never want to set foot in a recording studio again. And I was horrified because I thought, wow, he must have been really affected by all the pressure from the record companies and the managers so much that he now really hates it. I still love the recording studio. I still love the magic of making albums. And that's because I'm in control of it. If I want to go surfing tomorrow, I can go. If I want to go to, California tomorrow, I can go. Every morning I play my guitar because I still love to play. I love playing my songs. I love playing other people's songs. I mean, I go and play, just for fun. I play in what they call them open mics round here. And I play some, songs that I would never be able to play in Pendragon because I love to do that. And
Mhm.
and that's my pace, which is a very slow pace compared with Stephen Wilson. I'm using Stephen Wilson as an example because I think he's a bit of a workaholic. He does, yeah, he works, and that's
Absolutely.
his thing. And my thing is, I like to work hard, but I like to imbue my work with my experiences of, being in nature and living this sort of other, it's like sometimes I like to live quite primitively. I like a campfire. I like to sleep in my van. There's some places that I go where no one goes, where I can do that. And I can stare up at the stars and drink a whiskey and look at the fire, and I get ideas for music. And that that that's how my pace is very different.
So maybe you are the voyager behind it all. Where did the
Yeah.
voyager come from? Yeah. Is there any particular? I insist on this particular song because I love it, and it certainly did very well on Futuro FM. And when you came here, you could realize that people were really went crazy when you play the first chords. And is there a story behind it? Maybe you can
Yeah.
tell us.
The story is that before we made the world album, Pendragon was on its knees. I was renting a room somewhere. I had a really terrible old car that kept breaking down. I had a horrible job, which was started really early in the morning delivering bread. I had no money, and we managed to start the record label, and I managed to get the license back from EMI for 9:15 and the Jewel and Fly High Fall Far, which we brought out on CD, and that just managed to save us. And I made a little bit of money that I was able to buy a ticket to go to America. And I stayed with some lovely people, a guy called Ken Welchoff from Progressive Records in Hayward in San Jose, California. And I stayed with him for 2 weeks, and he had a piano. And this is what I'm saying about going to do things like that. I started to play the piano and had these ideas for songs and came back with these ideas for the World album. And the song The Voyager was all about that trip to America and how it, from that album, everything changed. Everything changed. I mean, we were, on our knees. It was not, we thought we might split up, and then we managed to just about get the money to do the artwork and the recording, and we put that album out, and it just went bang and sold loads of copies, and suddenly people were recognizing us as a good prog rock band. They loved that album, and
Sorry, I was going to ask you, Shane, for example, to me, could have been a perfect single. Uh, didn't you want to make singles out of the album, or didn't you mind about,
no.
care about that? No, no.
The whole thing with the world was making by that point we tried a couple of singles and a couple of more commercial songs, but the whole brief with the world album was to make music that we love, and that happens to be some quite sort of I wouldn't say pop music, but it's more commercial. I mean, the last waltz from, Do You Remember, Do You Recall, is, very catchy, and that would have made a good single. So, and I've always loved pop music. I mean, I'm a massive fan of soul, 1970s black soul music. I love people like Heat Wave, those kind of singers, Eddie Holman, Michael Jackson, the Jackson
Boogie
Five.
Nights.
Pardon?
Boogie Nights.
Pardon?
Boogie
Boogie
Nights.
Nights. Yeah, Heat Wave.
Yeah.
But
And
Always
the
and Forever is such a beautiful song.
fantastic. That's the B-side. And
Yeah,
yeah.
and that was a big hit over here. And that singer,
Oh,
Johnny Wilder,
yeah.
it was great. But I love singers like Whitney Houston, and because they are so that sort of black soul singer, to me is I love it. I can really hear the soul. I love those singers. They're kind of my favorite vocalists to listen to, that sort of thing. So, it was an element of commercial music plus the prog thing, but it was music that we loved. We weren't trying to get hit singles. We just thought, let's make an album that we like. And it happened to succeed for us very well.
Do you have a I don't know how the process goes, but do you present the band with an idea, then they start contributing, or do you prefer to come with a whole thing more or less ready? How does it work?
Yeah, pretty much. I present the band with completed songs. I mean, you know, uh, that works very well in our dynamic. I mean, in other bands, it doesn't. I mean, like with Genesis, they all contributed, and that worked well for them. Mike Oldfield does it all on his own, or did it all on his own. And the way that we work is that Peter and Clive are very happy to let me do the writing because they have their own musical outlets.
Yeah.
And, if they didn't have their own musical outlets, it may be different. But it worked very well with me writing the stuff. And, that was our kind of formula for survival because it also meant that there wasn't any musical differences or conflict over writing, because I would sort of write the finished, completed thing. But, what I wanted from the other guys was to bring their personality to the albums, with the drum, particularly with the drums and the bass, because I program drums here, just like so the drummers can get an idea of what I'm trying to achieve.
Mhm.
But I want the drummer to bring his own stamp to it. And the same, I mean, one of the greatest differences is the bass. Peter does a lot more than I do when I do the demos. So that always brings a lot of life to the music too.
Mhm.
It's a very good formula the way we have it now.
Okay. Now, this is a long idea, long question on your professional but also personal side and the band members search. You have different paths in life, lessons that you have learned. life takes you to different places, and the world as it was yesterday when you began, and the way it is today, and the years and years of touring, getting the people's feedback and the positive reaction to the band, to Pendragon, on stage and everywhere, must have surely caused an impact on every band member and yourself. What are your views after all these several years growing and developing in every sense? Because I'm sure you don't consider you know everything. You don't know how to play the guitar in the perfect way, and that's the fun in it in still playing it, in discovering new things, discovering new ways. Uh, how have you learned after all this time? What things have you learned, and how do you think that you have evolved as a person and professionally?
Well, there's so many different aspects to that because first of all, one of the most important things is to learn about people. Um, if you're working with other musicians for, well, like Pendragon, we've been going for 48 years. Uh, that's a long time. And to keep a band going that long, you have to have the right people. I mean, fortunately, we've had Peter and Clive for so long, and we've known each other for so long that we kind of understand each other. We work together extremely well. So that, I think the people learning that you have to have the right people and learning that no one's perfect. Everyone's going to have their foibles, and there's going to be things that I do that really annoy them, because I'm quite pushy on things. But they know that now, and we accept each other's faults and foibles, and they're just part of the whole thing now. So that's an important thing to learn. I mean, from the music point of view, um, I try to create music which I call it needs to reach people. So you need something sort of, for me, I mean, not everybody, some other writers will work in a very different way, but for Pendragon, a lot of what we do is about the the emotion of the music. So there needs to be something in there that people can kind of latch to, that emotionally kind of touches a nerve with them or reaches their heart, or that combined with something which is beautiful as well. I mean, what I'm working on at the moment is some new stuff. I have some good melodies and I have some tunes, but I have to find the right lyrics that are going to really touch people's hearts. And this is that's not easy to do. But I've learnt that these aspects need to be in music to make it work. And it's different with everybody. If you take somebody like Coldplay, when they do a song like Paradise, it's an amazing melody. It's brilliant, and it's got the chanting kind of whoa, 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 and the melody and the lyrics in there really work well together, and that comes over. So, a lot of people can really, really relate to it. And that to learn to do that is that's a hard thing to do, because quite a lot of music comes out and it doesn't really have true emotion in it, and it's like a lot of prog rock now. I'm not sure I always hear the emotion, which is why I like IQ, because they have that. There's a vulnerability in there which connects with people. And like say a completely different kind of thing, like Pat Metheny. When Pat Metheny starts to play, I kind of I'm taken to a slightly different world. It's it reminds me. First Circle reminds me of going to Vienna when my dad lived there, and we would go and visit him in Vienna. And so if music can transport you, to learn to do that is, I think, probably one of, if not the most important thing. You're sharing that with people and you're hoping that people are going to get transported to this kind of magical place.
Sure. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Cruise to the Edge shows. Have you had the chance to? Well, by the way, my nephew was the one that asked you for a message, on the ship. Christian, maybe you remember that from the last year. I was going to ask you, have you had the chance to interact or maybe join or be joined on stage by any fellow musicians or maybe longtime heroes? And how different is the energy in those gigs than the usual one that goes on in solid land and theaters, uh, playing in ships? Surely must be different.
Um, yeah, it is because if you play on the outside stage, the what they call the pool stage, it is incredibly difficult for the bands because when IQ were playing, there was so much wind.
Uh,
They nearly had to stop playing, and there's no shelter over the stage, so if you could get too much sun, you could get really badly burned. A lot of the musicians don't like playing the pool stage because the sound is a real fight. So you have to really concentrate. So that's on the one side. On the other side, playing in the theatre was absolutely fantastic, and I loved playing that. It was really great. But you've got a lot of people on the same boat, so you bump into, um, I think bump into. You see people around like the guy Ross Jennings from Haken was kicking around. Um, Neil Morse, people like that are pottering around, and the guys from Big Big Train, we saw them as well. Occasionally, you might see Steve Hackett wandering around Steve Hackett doing a bit of fishing over the edge. Not really. You never ever get to see um, Robert Fripp. He never comes out. But it's the sort of the bands who are probably not the really big famous bands all tend to be quite sociable. And we spent quite a lot of the week with IQ, at the back of the ship. And I took my guitar up there and we played some songs, cover songs. I played stuff like Neil Young and, just for fun, a lot of old songs. And we had a really, really good, the dynamic, I think, is fantastic, particularly as you're at sea, because I noticed this on the first cruise because people can't really go anywhere. They're all there. So, you're going to bump into them in the restaurant or out the back by the bar there. And, it's outside and the ship's moving along and it's, late at night and the stars are out. I mean, it's pretty amazing, really. It's a lovely thing to be part of. And we're very lucky that, there's all these musicians, who are connected with this. And you bump into quite a lot of them, It's a great dynamic.
Now that you mention him, what would you choose? Neil and Damage Done. Tell me why.
So, what?
Neil Young. You
Neil
mentioned Neil
Young.
Young.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite song by him?
It's got to be Harvest Moon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I love that song. I play that one a lot. I play it a lot on guitar. I love it.
Hmm. Good. Now, um, from a clearly so-called neo-progressive sound in the 80s and through the 90s, you went, that's what I feel, of course, you went into a different approach with albums like Pure, which I think was album of the year back in 2009, chosen by the Classic Rock Society, and Passion. And there were certainly some elements that changed, or how has the chemistry and life experience maybe influenced in the new, so to speak, a little bit heavier sound,
Yeah.
a little bit darker approach, which to me was quite clear.
Yeah. I mean, it came from I like to do back then. I used to do motocross with my son, and we used to watch these motocross videos. Um, I can't remember who it was, who the guy was, but there's a video, a DVD called Relish,
Okay.
um, and a lot of the music on there. It's new metal, and I thought, my goodness, it's very melodic and very sort of youthful and very powerful, and I really liked it. A lot of these bands that were, basically sort of American new metal. It was like a next step on from grunge. But I really liked it, and I thought if we could have some of this sort of style in Pendragon, but still maintain the melodies. So we're not going out and out, in any kind of way to any one thing. We're still very Pendragon, but can we do this? And so that is how, those two albums came about. I mean, my son was playing a lot of rap music around the time of Passion. And so, that was why I thought, well, I wonder if we could do a rap, on empathy. But it needs to be with a very melodic background, a melodic chord structure, so it sort of remains like Pendragon. And it's an interesting thing to do as a musician. You want to push the boundaries of what you can do, and sometimes you need to do that more than at other times. And it was sort of something that I felt I had to get out of my system, to try and change the music a bit, have a slightly different approach to it, and just try something a bit different for a while.
Uh-huh. Now, what about awards, Nick? I think you were chosen Best Guitar Player in 2010 by the Classic Rock Society, was it? And what do those awards mean to you, and how uh, do they touch you in a positive way? And would you ever share any of those awards with some fellow guitarists that you admire today? You said to yourself, "Oh, but this other guy should also have received something." Uh, how much does your
Uh,
ego gets modified?
well, not re I, my ego with this is sort of fairly under control. That's half the problem that musicians have is they believe the press, when people say, "Oh, you're amazing," they want more of that adoration, and it's a fake illusion. They're being deceived because what they want is they want more adulation. Where what you really want to hear is that when people say, "We love you," that's a deception. When you hear people say, "We love your music," that is true. That's a true thing. So you've got to kind of take it, as we say, with a pinch of salt, about people saying, you're amazing. It's not real. Because the thing is, you'll start to want more and more of that. And you can never, ever get enough. And then you start to have problems with your ego and it just gets out of control. And that's another problem with becoming famous. You've got all that to deal with. But people move away from their craft when that happens. And that's the problem is that they start to lose interest and their love for music, and they just want to be unconditionally idolized by people. And it's an illusion, it's fake. The real thing is producing music which comes through, I think, from a much greater, powerful spiritual thing that comes through you in a positive way. And that's the thing that counts. Can you move people with your music? So, when we get awards for things, it's nice. It's great when people recognize your guitar playing or something like that. But it doesn't mean if you don't get any awards, you're suddenly going to say we're not good enough and pack it in. That's not going to happen. It's just nice to get awards, when they do come along occasionally.
Mhm.
As for sort of sharing the award with other guitarists, I mean, that doesn't really occur to me at that moment. So if I go to collect award, I'm not thinking I need to share this with someone else because that guy will probably win it next year. So, they kind of the awards get kind of shared around quite a lot anyway. People, if the guy doesn't win it this year, maybe he'll win it in 2 years' time.
Uh-huh. Now, what's your impression, Nick, about artificial intelligence being used these days to make non-existent progressive bands? Some of them are really amazing, in my own personal opinion. Uh, but some other people are creating fake albums by real bands. I know that you were recently affected by that. Oh, there seems to be somebody saying that they are Pendragon and they are not. I've heard some Pink Floyd new albums that are really fun to listen to, and some other guys making these non-existent bands with incredible, really, really, really interesting albums. So it's kind of confusing. You don't know what to say and how to judge all that is happening now.
Well, there's a couple of things that are, quite a serious situation is that, what we are seeing. I mean, I'm lucky because I've had, 50 years of being able to play. So it doesn't really affect me quite so much now. But, what you're seeing is the death of the artist. Painters, people that do artwork for things, you're going to lose the human aspect of being creative. And that is tragic because AI can only really take elements of what's already been done. And it kind of slightly makes me laugh a bit, really, because I'm thinking, yeah, do all the AI you like. There's no way in the world you're going to be able to put out the album that I'm working on now because you don't know it. So it can't replicate that. Yeah, okay. And when it comes out, maybe after a couple of years, it will include that as well. But from where I'm standing now, it doesn't know the music that I'm making now. So, it's only kind of working on stuff from the past. Um, I don't know. I feel, it's a tough thing for young bands and young artists who are starting out trying to make a way. But I think this is going to cause a really big problem. It's the death of death of creativity, and the whole human soul is connected to being creative.
Yeah.
Once that goes, for all its sort of faults and, imperfections, that's half of the beauty of it. I mean, that's what makes me laugh about AI is that it won't have the imperfections. So, it won't be, maybe you can put imperfections in it. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but I think I'd take it a lot more seriously if we were starting out again now. I'd be quite worried about it. I'd probably train to do another job.
Now, talking about the extensive discography by Pendragon, Nick, what songs? I know it mustn't be very easy to pick a few, but what songs on all your discography always make you feel very proud and think, "Wow, this one
Hmm.
came out really right," while playing them
Oh, God.
live? Apart from, of course, apart from the Black Knight, uh, and what are some
Yeah,
songs that
God,
you
and
think are legendary?
most of the songs. I mean, when we've been doing re-releases, some of the stuff that I haven't played for a long time, suddenly I've got to play it again. And I think, wow, like even stuff from, COCTEAU when we brought that out on CD and the Jewel I had to listen to. Or we brought out Fallen Dreams and Angels vinyl, and I had to check the vinyl, you know, lots and lots of times, and I loved hearing all those songs. It was fantastic, and they've all got something, you know, quite special about them. I mean, some songs, you know, I still emotionally, I mean, The Edge of the World, we dragged that out and we were playing that on the last tour as an acoustic thing, and it was fantastic to play that. But Learning Curve from Believe as well. You know, I loved hearing that again. That was fantastic. And you know, some of the stuff on, I mean, Queen of Hearts on The World. It just goes on. I mean, there's everything's got something in there that is nice to hear.
Sure. Now, what are your views? You were mentioning vinyl. What are your views on the return of vinyl, the format, and how much extra can you really get from the old master tapes? As I see things, there are a few not very spectacular pressings. Recently, I bought a copy of The Wall by Pink Floyd. It was a disaster. Noisy clicks and pops somewhere.
Oh.
I don't think you have very brilliant record pressing engineers these days. But I also know that Pendragon, your fans usually, I think, that are more into CDs. Although some people say that CD is dead because of the platforms. It's a long conversation, but what do you think of this return of the format, vinyl versus CD? Still alive, by the way.
Well, you know, I love the ritual of vinyl, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people who are in our age group also like the ritual of, you know, the artwork and the way it sits on your lap and you can open it up, particularly if it's a gatefold with color inserts. You know, I mean, we have really, really concentrated on the vinyl releases that we've done. I mean, even the kind of cardboard, you know, we've had samples sent. We're like, oh, you know, that one won't really work. Oh, this one's good. You know, this, because I can remember what it was like when I bought Trick of the Tail
Mm.
and it had kind of a mottled cardboard, and I loved that. And so did Moon Madness by Camel. So, and the joy of having vinyl that was like that was something that I wanted to do with our stuff. I mean, with Masquerade Overture, I had to go, nobody had the artwork for Masquerade Overture. I had to go back to Simon Williams, the artist, and he had to go from Wales, drive to Wales to his another house
Wow.
in Kent and go down into the archives to find the artwork. And he told me some of the paint has chipped off the original picture, but luckily he had it because we wanted to use the original artwork, you know, so that it was good quality and it wasn't just reshot because Snapper Music re-released they released the vinyl of the Masquerade and the quality was terrible. So it's important to me and you know the rest of the band that it has everything as good as it can be for those vinyl records. I mean, I sit here and it takes me about 2 days to check, you know, all the test pressings because if I can't just have it on in the background, I've got to listen because if there's a pop, you know, like on there was one on Queen of Hearts and you know just like that you could miss it,
You get
but then
distracted.
when
Yeah.
I have to make a note of that, and then when I have to listen to all the other copies I have to see if it's in the same place, and there was, and I had to go back to the pressing plant and I rejected the test pressings of the World album and they corrected the things I said so it came back. But I think you're right, is that a lot of engineers are not quite so keen to you know that's the great thing about me owning the copyright, owning the record label, owning you know everything with it. It's my, I'm in control of, and it will be as good as I can make it. I haven't got a team of managers listening to it, it's me. So I listen, I sit there and listen to that vinyl, you know, for 2 days. And even then, if I'm not sure, go back, oh, I need to hear these again. I mean, you're sick to death of hearing it after, like 30 times, maybe 30 odd times. Okay. I mean, some albums, like Not of This World, it was fantastic listening to it, but even that after 30 times is quite, you don't really want to hear it again at the weekend. But vinyl as well, you can sit there and, I mean, I bought some vinyl and I love playing it.
Sorry if I lost. Somebody's doing something.
That's the vinyl. So yeah, the sound you get from vinyl, I think is incredible. It sounds very personal. It's that analog thing that is away from digital, so it's got there's something about it. I mean, I've heard some vinyl, some soul records in a shop quite close to where I live, and it just sounds amazing. It sounds like they're playing in your room, and you can sort of almost sense the people, and I do like that. I think it's a great thing. But it scratches, it's awkward, it's difficult to ship. You get pops and things, and yeah,
And it's expensive these days. I'm really amazed to see how much they charge for the new pressings. It's like
it's
almost
really
like a
expensive to make. I mean, that's the thing
yeah.
is that it got to the point with CD booklets where they were cheap to make because they were just like bits of paper, really. But we used expensive cardboard and everything now to the actual vinyl pressing and everything. Everything you have, like a different color, that's more expensive. You add this, it's more expensive. If this is full color, that's more expensive. So they're very expensive to actually make. But it's helped us survive because vinyl has been very popular with prog rock fans because this is what we all loved. This is the great thing about our age group is that we all loved this, back in the 70s and the 80s. We loved vinyl.
Yeah, we did. Well, I still do, as you can see. I'm sorry. I hope you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Let me see if this brings something back to memory. Do you see? Well, not sure if you have seen this, but this is the poster that they created when you were coming to chill back in 2022 to
Yeah.
the Chocolate Club, and it got canceled because of the pandemic. It was a terrible time, and I was going to ask you if you had any other invitations. I think this was the Lab Club. I don't know the producers. Do you think it would be possible that you return one day more
One
to
day,
Chile? Yeah.
one day, I'm sure. I did contact the promoter when we started to tour again. I contacted the promoter, Gustavo, a guy called Gustavo, and I didn't hear back from him. And I contacted the guy in Brazil as well because we were going to go to Brazil, and he said we're no longer doing concerts, so we have to start all over again. We have to find someone else who, can get us over there to play.
Yeah, you must. You must
Yes.
return. Yeah, you must. Uh, I have to listen. Yeah, yeah. We have to, albums like the new albums are really surprising, really amazing. So we should have get the chance to listen to those live. Now I'm going to share other image, if you allow me to. Ta-da! Look who's there. 2 days, 2026.
Yes.
Yeah, we just got this from, well, by the way, say hi to Rachel. Thanks for all her help. And
Yeah.
I'm sure she must be part of reminding you, oh, you have to do that Zoom with Christian. Now, it seems
Yeah.
that you have a few dates written down, like Spain, even Spain, the Netherlands. So, what's to come?
Um, well, this year I'm spending a lot of time writing new material for a new album. Um, but we have to play something every year. So, we're going to do 1 week's worth of shows in November, end of October, beginning of November. Um, and then when we bring a new album out, hopefully we'll do a bigger tour. We'll see. We'll see how things are. I don't know. It's very difficult to get tour dates. Like Rachel was saying, so many people, saying, "Oh, why aren't you playing here? Why aren't you playing there?" We can't. We just can't. You know, how do you do it? In a way, it's kind of quite, quite sweet, really, that people think they just see, you know, four people playing on stage, and they that's what you see, and you hear the music, and you see the band, but that's 10%. 90% is organizing, tour buses, all the accommodation, the travel. You just cannot get to Spain in 3 hours. It takes 2 days to get there. And we're trying to get dates in France, but you can't because the promoter doesn't reply to emails, because they complain they're not making any money, so they don't want to, it's not like Marillion had, some that they were very well known. So they still have a phenomenal fan base that they can play to, a good few thousand people will go and see them. Well, we don't have that many. So we can't just go and play where we want. We can only go and play in places where, you know, we can get enough people to make it work out. And we try and vary it a bit. I mean, like last year, we haven't been to Spain for 12 years or something. So we have to go. We haven't played Italy, so we had to go to Italy. We don't get enough people to be able to put this together. I mean, it's a bit like someone saying to a baker, you know, we want you to make 100 donuts. And the baker says, but I only sell two. Yeah, but we want you to make 100, but I only sell two. Okay, I'll make 100 donuts. And then he's going to go bankrupt. It's exactly the same. That's what it is. There are not enough people to be able to do what we would like to do. We are lucky we are able to do what we do in spite of this situation because people just don't realize. They say things like, well, Steve Hackett comes from one of the biggest prog rock bands in the world. And that music is known by tens, hundreds of thousands of people. We've never been that well known. Or there are other bands out there who are able to finance it themselves. There are some people out there. In fact, I kind of make a bit of a joke about this because I always say that the bands that you see who are kind of active, they are what we would say in England, the ones with the deepest pockets. They put a lot of their own money into it. And you're talking about tens, maybe even some cases, hundreds of thousands of pounds of their own money into it. And that they're happy to lose that money. We cannot do that. It's impossible. If we had If we won the lottery, we could play everywhere. We could just hire a tour bus, we could hire a massive crew, and we could go and play wherever we want to play. But we don't, and we can't. Just going to America. I mean, we were looking at this today, and Rachel just told me that it's $2,000 to get a work permit. If the band and crew is 10 people, I mean, yeah, in fact, it's more than 2,000. She worked out it would cost $28,000 just for the work permits. That's without hotels, without transport, without anybody's wages. I mean, people need to understand that, when you do concerts, you have to rehearse a hell of a lot. It's not just the 2 hours on stage. If I do any kind of live playing, I have to rehearse for weeks and weeks and weeks beforehand. If I'm doing that, I can't write music because I'm rehearsing. I mean, like the shows we did last year, we did some weekenders and there was 5 hours worth of music to rehearse. And I've got to do all the vocals, all the singing, I've got to do all the talking to the audience and, press all the pedals for the sounds. And I started to rehearse that 3 months before the shows. And that's full time. That's playing all day, every day, so that it becomes what we would call second nature. So you can perform properly. It's like training for, and people say, yeah, but you know the music, you should be able to play it. Well, it's like saying to a guy that runs a marathon, well, you should be able to run 26 miles. You have to train. You have to train to be able to do it. So they do it in spite of the work that has to go in. And it's the same with us. We can't just play wherever we would like to play. We would love to. We'd be playing all the time if we could just go and play. And but other people like Peter has a job. He's got to pay his mortgage. Clive's got his other projects. Vinnie has got some other bands that he plays. That's the way it works.
And you play complex music, which is what amazes us, the fans, the followers, the most. We wonder how can they play this. These songs are not different. They have these tempo changes. It's amazing, especially the extended pieces and how well you perform every time. So this goes for all the pro musicians over there. But yeah, it's not just as you say playing because you know the songs by heart, but by memory. Now, Nick, is there anything that you regret or feel that it's pending, a pending achievement, or that you long for? Too many questions in one.
No, no, that I don't have any regrets about life or music or anything. That's kind of one of my mantras is no regrets. I don't I just don't have that in my psyche. I'm very happy that I've been able to produce music for nearly 50 years and make a living out of doing what I'm doing. And to have the life of and to still be interested after all this time to be able to create. I mean that's living the dream, really.
Glad for you. Now, let me show you a few things I have here, if you don't mind. Um, I just took randomly some pictures of some things that I've received from the band all these years. Maybe you remember this?
Oh, crikey, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me try to open one more. I'm sorry. This is one of the programs you sent me back in those days, back in the mid 80s. Um, I think it was this one. Program, Pendragon program. This must be
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
this
it.
is the mid 80s, yes?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Uh-huh. You have good memories of these days? You had a mailer contact was it was called
Well,
contact.
yeah, we had a newsletter, but we were selling, those sort of little magazines as well, to try and make some money.
Uh-huh.
Um, the contact sheet was a news sheet which was free. But we thought it'd be nice to have sort of like a proper little tour program, because we had to sort of put petrol in the van to go and do the shows, so we had to try and have some things to sell. And we still had a few t-shirts and we were selling tapes though in those days. which sold very well, and that sort of enabled us to then go further afield and do more shows. And it was a brilliant time, but it was very frustrating because we were striving so hard to try and become more well known. And we were getting older, so there's the worry that we may not be able to make a living out of what we're doing. So we might have to pack it in. And I mean, even after those times, I still had to do a lot of other jobs, like pumping gas in a petrol station and delivering
Oh,
bread, driving a van, delivery van. Yeah, yeah, it's quite a lot of.
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I imagine it must have been hard, and so that's a double reason, triple reason to be happy, as you say. And it looks that you look happy. You look like an optimistic person all the time, and you can notice that in your energy, playing, singing, and communicating on stage. So I'm glad for you, really, because you deserve what you have today after 48 years. You do.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, Now, let me go back to this a little bit. Um, yeah, well, this is the program. This these are the this is from Sounds.
Oh,
This
yes.
must be your handwriting. Sounds Paul
Yeah,
85.
it is.
Yeah,
It's my handwriting.
you were competing with Marillion, Iron Maiden, the Cult, no less. Dire Straits. Look at you.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
amazing.
Sisters of Mercy, you too. IQ. Yeah, there are so
But
many
see, the
great
thing
bands.
is that a lot of a lot of these things were, we were playing at the
Oh,
Marquee.
yeah.
Hey,
Look who's here.
I remember that shirt. I wore that shirt in the
Touch.
show Chile.
Yeah, you did. This is Musicland. If you don't remember, you remember Eduardo Balas? The first time that
Yeah,
I got a, yeah,
yeah. I
yeah,
wondered about Eduardo. What's
he's
Ed is
fine.
Eduardo?
He's okay. Yeah, he still has a record shop online and he's playing some music.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing.
he also looks like a happy guy. And thanks to him, I met you at his music shop back then in the late 90s. Oh,
Yeah.
again, the same guy. Yeah. Well, these are some of the letters you used to send me. You were so kind and you were really great with the fans from the very beginning. So I thank you for all that. So this is why this occasion is very special. Oh, is it
Oh, well,
your Nick Barrett? Huh? Do you still do your radio show? You were asking me. Yeah.
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 Well, it was kind of important to that's it, Teatro, yeah,
Monumental theater. Yeah.
Monumental. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Look at this. This is
Um,
from a newspaper, San Diego, Pendragon, Friday, 17th at 10 p.m. Look at the prices. You know, Nick, the prices of the tickets for shows these days are incredibly ridiculously
yeah,
expensive. From 10,000 pesos is nothing. So,
it's
well, those
amazing.
were different days. The music
But
took the
a
night.
lot of people, a lot of people now,
Mhm.
um, they because they don't make any money from Spotify.
I
I mean,
heard.
yeah, it's incredibly low. So a lot of people are making their concert tickets more expensive because that's the only thing that they actually can control
Hmm.
is the concerts. They can't control their their music anymore. And a lot of bands are a bit put off making new albums because they can't make any money out of it. So a lot of bands have become like heritage bands, I mean,
Hmm.
like the Eagles, they're so big. Or Fleetwood Mac, they're going to play all their old stuff. They're probably not going to write anything new. Their love to sort of create has become, they're kind of a bit old and tired now. So, maybe they don't feel that creative, well, which is great. When you get people like Pat Metheny, he still very much likes to play and compose. I mean, one of the greatest of all of these is Al Di Meola. I mean, Al Di Meola, yeah, changed I always think he went through three different phases. He had the sort of return to forever type of stuff, and the elegant gypsy era, which was fantastic when we were younger. To hear all that lovely jazz rock, and then later on around the sort of orange and blue period, all those albums, the Manhattan years, he had that more kind of, guitar synth type of thing, and but still, really, really good. And then now he does, quite a lot of classical guitar stuff, and he's progressed a lot. And he's each era, I think, has been really, still really, really good. And he still makes a lot of music and he still plays live. I mean, that's the great thing about not becoming really massive because you still have a craft. I mean, I'm sure, and Lindsey Buckingham, I think, is fantastic. And, Don Henley has written some great stuff, but I think when you become that big, you maybe not quite so keen to do it anymore. And it's so nice to see people like Pat Metheny and Aldo Meola who do still want to play music.
Yeah, and well, the last time I saw Pat Metheny here was like 4 months ago, and it was absolutely incredible because I was wondering how a solo show would be. I always saw the Pat Metheny group here like 3 times,
Yeah.
and then when he brought this orchestral thing, it was
Yeah.
like incredible, incredible, really amazing. He played one of my favorite tracks, maybe you know it, Sueño con México. I Dream About Mexico on one of his solo albums, and you could see him on stage beginning the tune, then he would leave that looped, and then he went somewhere else on stage, and he would start this orchestral thing. It was absolutely incredible. So he's been so incredibly talented, but also wise that he could move on with technology. He's taking advantage of that he can make solo concert without a band and still amaze all of the Pat Metheny group fans. So yeah, um,
That's very
yeah,
good. Still
yeah.
very innovative. But yeah, I mean, I think, same with Aldo Meola. I bought some of his recent albums, and I just think he's still writing great music. And, he's a great writer. People always sort of see him for his guitar playing. And this is the trick. The trick with people like that, who are technically great players is can they create? Can they create music that people want to hear? Because you get a lot of really amazing musicians who can't write. They cannot write music. I mean, I heard that Jeff Beck. I mean, I loved Jeff Beck, but he wasn't. It wasn't really a writer. The track he played, "Cause We Ended of Lovers," as lovers, I think was written by Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
And a lot of his other stuff was written by other people, but he was a great player. But Aldi Meola is a great player, but he's a great writer as well.
Where are you? Where do you stand? Oops. are you?
Sorry?
Are you? What do you like the most in Nick Barrett? Nick Barrett, the singer, the composer, the performer.
Well, I like all of those. I liked, and that I feel very lucky because over the years, I've enjoyed singing a lot more than I used to. I mean, I gave up smoking about 24 years ago, 20 years ago, 24, 22 years ago. And that made me able to sing a lot better live, and I enjoyed it a lot more live. And so I really enjoy singing now and finding vocal melodies in songs that I really like. If I when I'm writing, I want to come up with a vocal. I get an idea for the vocals quite quickly because then I can see how the emotion of the whole thing will shape up.
Mhm.
But the guitar playing, I mean, all of it. I like all of it. I like to stand on stage and talk to the audience. That's all part of the show. So I like to tell the stories to the audience. So that's part of the performance. I like to expand the band. I mean, we have two girl backing singers now, and we have Rog Patterson playing some 12 strings. So it's a pretty big sound. Yeah,
How
so it's
what?
all moving forward. It's great. I love all aspects of it.
How did you find your new drummer, Vinny?
Vinny, well, he actually came from Craig Blundell. We had Craig played on Men Who Climb Mountains, and Craig had to suddenly leave and go and play with Stephen Wilson. And he said, but I know his actual words were, I know a monster player who will be perfect for you. And he introduced us to Vinny, and Vinny came down and we tried some rehearsals, and it was just fantastic. Straight off, it was really good.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Well, we hope to see him and you in the band. So, what would you like to say? Because I think that I had so much fun. I'm so glad and happy that you gave it this time. Finally, I insisted and insisted, and we kept sending emails. I said, "Oh, I lost him. No, I'm not going to lose him. So I'm going to insist." So, there are some fans here. You have lots of fun here, really. And what would you tell them? I know that touring doesn't depend on the band, on you, but I hope that you do get an answer from the promoters one day, or that they find you again.
Yeah, I mean,
Otherwise,
if we can find a promoter who's prepared to put, a show on, we'll do it
yeah,
like a shot, like a shot. I mean, we want to come back. We want to. South America is a great place to play, and Chile. Um, I mean, I can remember Eduardo saying to us, "What are your expectations for the show in Chile?" And I said, I don't know. I don't know if we have many fans." He said, "You'll have the biggest audience of the entire tour in Chile." I said, "You've got to be kidding, really?" He said, "Yeah, I guarantee you that." And sure enough, it was the biggest crowd and incredibly enthusiastic. And I couldn't believe it. And so, it was very special. And we'd love to come back there and play.
yeah, and well, I'm sure that many people went to buy the Pendragon albums to Musicland back in those days. Those were very magical days to me too, when I was so happy playing all this music that I thought was great. Camel, all the ones you mentioned, and
A lot of people, certain people really, really changed this for Pendragon. I mean, people like you at Futuro FM and people like Eduardo, this similar thing happened in Argentina, where one of our friends, Victor Gospodinov, ran Big Bear
sure.
Records. And he just had a little record shop and he bought a few CDs and sold them and he put some posters up and he was keen. And then he said, maybe we could do a concert. And he knew a guy that did a radio show and it built and built and built. And these guys, the groundswell of the enthusiasm from these people like you and, like with Eduardo, made this happen. So, for us, we're forever grateful to you guys for being so enthusiastic towards us. It's really, really been everything, and it's been the same in countries all around the world. It's been, people who have had a radio show or a little record shop or a magazine. It's been them that have enabled us to build a following and
Because
keep
you
going. You've been
because
part of this journey.
well, it's because you deserve it. One thing takes to the other. Good music, I think that makes some people want to share it. I don't think it's very fun to listen to music alone. Young people these days listen to this music on the cell phones and this isolated action. Whether we in the past we used to gather with friends and play,
Yeah,
yeah, that was so
yeah,
much fun, and you could,
yeah.
mhm. So
Well, we
yeah,
used to, it was kind of like finding, diamond as well. I mean, Peter used to phone me up and say, "Hey, I've been out all Saturday trying to find the new Camel album. Oh, crikey, did you find it? Yeah, I found it, like in a shop 25 miles away. I found it. I found it. Oh, wait, come over and we'll have to listen to it."
yeah.
The enthusiasm for music was it's incredible. But I still have this sort of thing now, when people bring albums out, I'm still very enthusiastic about what I'm listening to at the moment. I mean, I've been playing an awful lot of jazz in the last couple of months. I've really got into listening to a lot of jazz, old traditional jazz like Miles Davis.
Yeah, me too. I never paid
Really?
much attention. Yeah, I mean, never paid much attention to traditional jazz, so to speak. But Miles certainly did something very, very special, and he caused this curve on the road that led many people to. I mean, I think that fusion jazz, Jean-Luc Ponty, and Return to
Ah,
Forever happened because of his first steps in that direction.
I mean,
Yeah,
Enigmatic Oceans is just like one of the best albums ever made. Jean-Luc Ponty. I mean, the sound is, you could not make a sound. The guitar sound of Alan Holdsworth is just, how old's that album? It's the mid 70s. It's old, and that guitar sound is playing is just off the scale.
yeah.
And the drumming, Steve, I think it's Steve Smith. The drumming is just, I mean, and then Jean-Luc Ponty, it's melodic, it's beautiful. I still really love those albums.
And now that you mentioned before we hang up, like you mentioned Alan Holdsworth, and I'm not sure if you are familiar with Nick Fletcher, who I'm a big fan of. He's been making some incredible music. He used to play with Steve Hackett's brother, and he's been making some incredible albums lately. Uh, the Mask of Sanity being the latest one. Uh, oof, yeah, that's real new,
Oh,
incredible jazz rock. A recommendation uh, between
what's it
music
called?
fans. Nick
The
Fletcher,
Mask.
the
Oh,
Mask of
what's it called?
Sanity is not the Mask of Insanity. It's the Mask of Sanity, and he's a
The
really
Mask of
interesting man.
Scent.
Yeah, yes,
Right. Okay, I'll look that up.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Well, thank you, Nick, again. This finally we're closing the circle. We are people that love good music, and music moves the masses, and that erases the differences. You know, sometimes politics, religion puts us apart, and music does the trick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
yeah. So
It
thanks
brings us back
again.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hope to see you again in Chile. And in the meantime, take good care. Say thanks to Rachel on my part, and give a big hug and handshake to Pete and Clive. Maybe I could try to contact them to do a Zoom one day. And thank you. Have a rest of Wednesday. What time is it there? Like 6 o'clock, 6:38. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, 6:38. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So have a good time, and hope to keep in touch.
All right. Thank you very much, Christian. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you again.
Yeah. Same here.
All right.